Well, hello, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me for this quick video on ADP's Analyst Day, which was held today in Pasadena. Perfect for me, a driving event from San Diego. So there was a lot of traffic, but any event which does not involve TSA is always a thumbs up. Quick notice on the setup. If you notice, I'm not sitting in the middle. This is all for my colleague Doug Henshin, who's been teaching me about the thirds, which I have to mirror here. So clearly you see me 1/3 down to my left, right? Well, it doesn't matter. ADP had their, I think it was the 4th Analyst Day I attended, and it was interesting to see a very good outcome at the at Pasadena Innovation Lab. Interesting facility, very similar to the last events were at the Innovation Lab in New York. Here it's a regular office building and nondescript location, somewhere downtown Pasadena to tap into the local talent. We had a great analyst dinner before with a professor who was in charge of the Mars rover conference. If I had my jacket on, I could pull out the menu and remember his name. So apologies to the professor and to ADP for not remembering the name. He was in charge of the lunar rover. Everybody who has seen The Martian saw the director of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The real one looks a little different. But let's go back to ADP. Interesting facility. The typical rooms for 6 people to form agile scrum teams was there too. Beautiful location, beautiful office. I can imagine people do innovative work there. Previous analyst summits were always under pressure from an analyst community perspective. How well does ADP really do in regards of their talent management offering, Vantage HCM, which always has been in the past, I wouldn't say in trouble, but very low from a usage customer adoption. And that was for a number of reasons. The good news is, and SAP made it abundantly clear at this analyst summit, has been addressed. Good for ADP, the number of Vantage HCM customers who've procured or implementing or live total numbers here has doubled, which is a major success for ADP in the penetration of talent management, but on the flip side also shows how much customers would like to see Vantage HCM being used, going from 249 to almost 500 customers. The interesting question is, can ADP repeat that performance and double that one more time? The pool is getting a little harder to get to because roughly it's out of 3,000 customers. Also, no pressure. And last year we saw a world record, if you remember that. After 2 seconds, Don Weinstein had the numbers out there before another analyst or industry commentator with who I share a beard and the gray hair gave ADP a hard time not having the numbers out right away. Tons of numbers today from Don. So impressive to see. Check out my Storyfy where I took pictures. Try to keep up pictures of all these numbers in tweets which are collected there. But really good to see a rich roadmap and good to see overall, from my view, when vendors under pressure, they have the option to stop products, to let them hang out and dry. ADP has not done with Vantage HCM, and that's paying off for them. Then major update, interesting, on the ADP Data Cloud, which really fuels what is ADP's unique capability, right? Globally paying almost 40 million people, in the US paying 30 million people, and with that having better analysis data about job information, employment than the US government, because the size of the sample is just bigger. And that allows ADP to do some very interesting things for enterprises, because it has real live paid data. It can influence what raises should be paid. It knows what should be paid for a certain role. Check out interesting tweet jobs on that on David Turetsky's presentation. So really interesting to see and good to see coming live, because really exciting things can be done around benchmarking, recommendation, what a fair salary is. They didn't touch it, but you can go into, well, now there was a diversity index too. Yeah, absolutely. No, there was a pay diversity index too. Very interesting things to bring more objectivity in this touchy subject of what do I pay people, how much do I pay people, what is the flight risk. Stuart Sackman, the head of development, the end had an outlook about what's happening in the future of HCM, was talking about conversational UI, but in the demo was saying, oh, you have an appointment of so and so and so and so, but there's actually flight risk for that individual should know that as a manager before going into that meeting. It's an interesting application also from the massive amount of data which ADP has behind the scene and keeps crunching and using it. So massive opportunity which ADP keeps developing around benchmarking, or what we call DaaS, data as a service, an important revenue stream for companies going forward. 20% we forecast at Constellation should be the revenue stream for people or companies who can provide an inside business, and ADP certainly can do that. Global capabilities are equally doing well. Lots of partnerships there. Overall, tech and takeaways. SAP's role has changed in the market a little, from being more competitor to more partner. But good progress on the multinational side, where ADP has invested equally in the same UI. Now all solution, as announced last year at the Analyst Summit, and as shown at the meeting of the Minds meeting earlier this year, are now on the new very compelling UI, which is still very modern, but is already showing a little bit its age, right? So that on the concern side, potentially is a UI which was designed, thought of about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, shows its age after a few quarters. It goes really, really fast in UI these days, which is ultimately good for the users who are spoiled by these consumer-grade applications. Hard for the enterprise software vendors, because things which look great 9-10 months ago look really, we need to do some work on that. But anyway, ADP has done a lot of work, and the main driver, main benefit here is around making the paycheck more interactive, which at first glance is a little bit surprising. But if you think from a multinational perspective, you might have very small employee populations in a country, no direct HR support. When these employees see something's wrong with paycheck, I don't understand something, it slows down what their real work is in that country. And they try to dial up people on an employee help desk, or the HR representatives, which might be different time, different country. So it's all a big hassle. So making the paycheck in general better to understood is definitely a good direction going forward. The real interesting thing, though, was that ADP announced, and to move over a little bit my cheat sheet here, which you see in the one slide takeaway, a product called Global Cloud Connect, where ADP wants to take any kind of HR core information and connect it with its payroll capabilities, no surprise there, but also with the other ADP capabilities around talent management, time capture, and I forgot the third one, other ADP products. So kind of like building a hub with a little bit pitch that the customer would be in charge of it, while ADP would be in charge of it. Customers will notice that. They'll need an analyst to figure that out. But I think a very interesting concept, which is important because the overall position, like I'll say a little later in one preview of ADP, has changed in the marketplace considerably. And that is powered by what ADP announced first with a Workday, and check out the blog on that. I'll probably reference it in the blog post, which will come out in this video later. A RESTful API, which is really exciting technology, because basically allows from the people who have to run the payroll, expose all the critical legislative, mandatory other fields in the UI where the user is working in their HR core application, which in the original example was Workday. So there's no fasten your seatbelts experience from a UI perspective for the user inside of Workday. At the same time, ADP can expose all the fields which are relevant to make this a compliant, non-frictionful, workable payroll one out of the Workday data. So REST, REST is the technology for that, which basically allows to send around the UI description of an API which has been called. So very interesting innovation. ADP is doing the same thing with SAP SuccessFactors, announced at the day today that we'll do the same thing with Oracle. So it's always good to see the same reuse of the same capability and functionality, especially when it helps enterprise and the users to be more productive. Last but not least, the marketplace. Didn't put the numbers in my cheat sheet. Is growing. Most remarkable on this is that except for payroll, ADP is open for anybody submitting their capabilities and products there. There's a very long vetting process, security process, which might even be holding a little bit the progress on that perspective back in terms of number of partners offering products on the marketplace, but it can be a competitor. And for instance, an example looked over, Cornerstone's offerings talent management product, which is totally competing with ADP's Vantage HCM. So interesting to have a marketplace, very good for the new way of buying, trying HCM software, frictionless, easy to do, sandbox-like to try out things. That's exactly the way how all of enterprise software is actually moving to, and good to see ADP early from that. So overall, my point of view, like I said initially, I mean, ADP could have cut off Vantage HCM, and maybe they've discussed that in their scenarios, thorough planners as they are. Luckily, I think for ADP customers and for the marketplace, they did not decide to cut the adventure into talent management or the Vantage into talent management, the Vantage HCM, pun intended, off, but doubled down on resources, invested into it, brought it to the new UI, added the new capabilities. 1 year ago, we analysts were allowed to onboard ourselves in the application. Kudos for ADP for having the courage to have analysts play with the solution. So equally more investment across the board for Vantage HCM, which hopefully, I would say from a customer adoption number, is certainly paying off. So it's always good to see that more R&D is working in the marketplace, making a difference for customers and employees using ADP software. As I mentioned, maybe already a little old. Some of the things were very, very new, very cutting edge. The data cloud is very good, but very interesting, innovative, but ADP is running on site. Major events recently make me think a little more that you probably need to go into the public cloud for that. Look at SAP's, the BW and HANA announcement where SAP, which has more on-premise traction, more data than any HCM vendor by itself standalone, so also ADP, realize that they have to put their ERP information into the context of the next generation applications, which are running in the cloud, which might be around IoT, around changing the value chain of an enterprise, around changing the supply chain, with massive, massive amounts of data. And the ERP information is just a rounding error. And the HCM information is a subset of the ERP information, certainly less. So, and the other interesting thing is, like a year ago, I mean, ADP has always been kind of like a partner and competitor for many vendors in the market, willingly or not willingly, but many of these relationships have been formalized and are in the go-to-market, starting with ADP and Workday, where ADP basically is de facto preferred used payroll engine outside of the 4 countries where Workday supports payroll natively. Same thing with SuccessFactors, where I was really surprised, but now understand why ADP sponsored the party as Success Connect 2 weeks ago, for multiple reasons here. And similarly, there's a partnership with Oracle. So despite ADP competing with all of these vendors in the mid-market, more partnering the high end of SAP, there's a partnership perspective in that through the new technology, which I tried to explain before on the RESTful API side. I realize I'm getting tired and it's becoming a longer video than it should be. I really appreciate you guys for watching. As always, stay tuned what's more coming in the HCM space in general, and also from ADP in the next weeks and months. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.